morning and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living, Fullerton. We're glad you're here with us today, and we're glad you're here with us at home too. And we're going to begin by reading our purpose statement. You can say it along with me. We are a loving spiritual community, empowering all to live healthy and successful lives through practicing the principles of science of mind. And let's see, we do have a new slogan for this year. Yay! It is, "We are one" in 2021. And that was submitted by Doug Fullerton. I invite you now to just get comfortable and relax. And let's just breathe in deeply together. And slowly let it go as we turn to the center of our being. And we just unite our minds and our hearts, and knowing that we have so much love today right here in this room, and it's flowing right out to you at home as well. We have the love of our church family, the love of our Father, Mother, God, that ever-loving presence that dwells within us. And recognizing this spirit within, this spirit of love, I thank everyone who has made this service possible for us to enjoy. I thank Tommy and Terry, who bring us beautiful music today. I know they're an inspiration to us all. I thank Tomoko for help in the office and all the work she does, keeping our center centered. There are blessings for my fellow practitioners who lovingly take care of the prayer work of this center. Blessings for our board of trustees who lovingly watch over the business. And blessings for our wonderful Reverend Dr. Bill Salisbury. And I know we will be hearing the message we need to hear today. And I speak a word of blessing for our congregation and for everyone watching our service. I know that we are all loved and all healed and healthy. And there's blessings for the world. I know that all fear will be replaced with faith and knowing that God is our one perfect power. And I know this service is a blessing to us all, and so it is. Amen.
I need to be still. Let God love me. I need to be still. Let God love me. When this old world starts to push and shove me, I need to be still and let God love me.
Thank you, Tommy and Terry. Well, I have a reading today, and I found this in an old Unity magazine called Timeless Truth. And this is called The Tree of Life, and it's written by Guy Laberge. A number of years ago, we rented a small ranch in a hidden canyon in Southern California. The old ranch house was surrounded by all kinds of fruit trees that brought us daily delights that we were unaccustomed to. Having lived in the East all of our lives, we never experienced the pleasure of simply going outside in the morning and picking a few oranges direct from the tree. The tree in the front of the house was our favorite. The oranges were large and juicy, and it seemed that this particular tree had an endless supply of fruit. It alone was enough to provide all the juice needed by our family, and we consumed about a dozen oranges daily. Out of all the trees, this was the largest and the most beautiful. Its branches seemed to bow heavily with the load of its fruit. One day, I invited the farmer who lived below us over for a cup of coffee. And as we sat on the front porch, the conversation turned to the large orange tree. In a slow drawl, he related a remarkable tale. 5 years ago, he said, we had a forest fire through here and we barely saved the house that you now live in. Well, this old tree got burned pretty badly, and most of the leaves and the bark were gone. I found this hard to believe because there were no visible signs of any injury on the tree, except for some deep scars all around the trunk. You know, he continued, that tree had not produced any oranges in 3 years. So while we were cleaning up around here after the fire, we decided to finish it off. I tried my best to knock that tree over with my tractor, but it was so strong I couldn't push it over. I tried from all directions, and all I succeeded in doing was putting some mighty bad gashes in it. After trying for about a half hour to bring it down, I just gave up and went on to cleaning the place up. And I forgot all about the tree. And would you believe it? The very next spring, that tree produced the best oranges we had ever seen. They were bigger and juicier than ever before. And now it's been doing the same thing for years. We were all glad that I hadn't succeeded in bringing it down. He explained that he had cut it badly in so many places that the sap was forced to come up from the roots to heal the wounds. I have reflected many times on this true story, and I have learned valuable lessons from it. I have thought of the injuries we all receive from life at some time or another, and how the wonder of healing takes place. When we have suffered from physical or psychological injury, does not the spiritual sap of the universe rush in to heal the wound? I have thought that many times we as humans take on the appearance of an upside-down tree. And like the tree, it would appear that we too have to go through harsh experiences at times to bring the spiritual sap from the universe into activity in us. The shock may hit the body, and the mind is forced to reach down into the spiritual reservoirs to come back with new life. Human experience strikes many parallels. We may be in a rut, unhappy, unhealthy, believing that we are at the end of our rope. Something has to happen to jar us out of it. So while going through the experience, we may find ourselves objecting, criticizing, and moaning over the pain, but later, when we mentally relive the experience, we see the good that has come from it, and we are thankful from the growth we have made. And just like the 60-year-old orange tree, we consciously choose to turn within daily, sending out little rootlets of consciousness into the spiritual reservoir deep within us. When we are firmly planted in the Spirit, we produce health, happiness, harmony, and love in our lives, and we can share this abundant good with others. And now, please join me in prayer. Just simply knowing and sensing that God is the one presence, that one life, that one love, that one consciousness, that spiritual sap within us. And I accept that this is the truth of my being, and I know that this power is ever-present, everywhere. All life uses this power, and we are the expressions of it. And recognizing this oneness, I open my heart, I accept spirit, I let go of any resentment, any pain, any past that has not served me well. I'm supported by this divine energy within, and I accept mental clarity, love, and happiness as my truth today and always. And with a grateful heart, I release this prayer into the law and know it is already done. And so it is.
So, thank you. That was really great. So, if at first you don't succeed, there's a possibility that skydiving just isn't right for you. But for those of us who don't have that issue and never run into that, for those of us who are born into this world and navigate it completely, one end to the other, life is an invitation to grow. The title of today's talk, and we're still working on expanding into the mystery. Well, expanding is growth, and we have to have that growth. Otherwise, Carol, I love the story about the orange tree, because like that orange tree, And we don't need a fire to do this to us. But I mean, sometimes, doesn't it feel like there's a little stuntedness to our growth? And you know, I know that there are people who live 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years on this planet and never grow to their potential. You know, and that's a sad thing to say, and I know we want to say, oh no, everybody grows, but you know what? I know some who haven't, and you do too. There are some people that grow to a certain level, and they just stay there. And if something comes along, like the bulldozer on the orange tree, that might change them, but sometimes even that doesn't. Haven't you ever known anybody like that? Sure, we all have. And it's that continued growth that's so necessary for the whole of humanity to achieve its potential. As a species, as human beings, as a human race, we cannot achieve our potential unless everybody participates and unless everybody gets out of, remember last week we talked about my story, our story, the story? Those people who stunted and refused to grow more, and that might be a little harsh, but I think we can say that. If a person does not grow, it's a refusal to. Because God knows there's opportunities everywhere for us to learn how to grow if we'll just get out of the my story. We cannot grow if we stay within my story. I mean, that's the baby's view of the universe. I mean, we all know that, right? It's all about me. And then as they get older, we're supposed to expand the horizons and move on into the other transcendent stories. But if you don't come out of my story, how are you ever going to get to our story? And then our story seems great, but we have to be so careful not to get into what we're going to call spiritual bypass. And really, when we hit spiritual bypass, that's almost always where it is. Because we applaud ourselves for getting out of my story and being able to see past that horizon onto the allness of our story. Our city, our school, our sports team, our state, our nation, our culture, our ethnicity, our color, our language. It's not far enough. Our story keeps us as confined and as constrained and as restricted and limited as my story does. And yet, by and large, I think most people get to our story and say, I've arrived. Here I am, God. And it's not here I am, God, at all. It's here I am, all of you who are just like me. And don't we applaud each other? And isn't that great? And then all at once, if we're all in this story, then everybody not in this story is what? Is other. And as soon as we get to the part where it's our story and their story, other, we've stopped growing. Now we may move along this way, we may expand our, well, let's call it what it is. We may expand our ignorance and our bigotry and our prejudice and our limitation this way flat as much as we want. Keep going and going and going, but that's not lifting any of us up. That's not lifting up the consciousness of the race. There's a divine pattern at work. In fact, you could say there's divine patterns, right? Divine patterns of forgiveness, of love, of joy, of beauty, of gratitude, of all those things. That's the divine pattern. But we sometimes get stuck in our limited patterns because there's human patterns also. right? And if we can't get beyond the human patterns of those things we just talked about as being, we think it's growth, but it's not, it's just a spreading out of the blob, as it were. It's not rising higher, it's just spreading over more parts of the country and the land. As long as we don't get past that invitation to grow that was given to us, brought with us, created at the same time as us, is never going to be fulfilled. It's not going to be answered. It's not going to happen. And if that's the case, and it's not, by the way, here's the good news. We know that's not the case, because when we look around and see everything that is so terribly, horribly wrong with our world right now, and it is, we're still terribly, horribly wrong at a way higher level than we were terribly, horribly wrong at 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Does that make any sense? So it's kind of like any Course in Miracles students, you know, they explain that the path is spiraling up, and then it comes down again a little bit, and then it goes back up again, and it's kind of like when you write the stuff around the Christmas trees. You know, it kind of goes up and down a little bit, but the overall course is up. And that's us. Our overall course is up. As long as we're willing to see beyond the ends of our noses and to get out of my story and get into the story. And sometimes we get a little nudge. I don't like the bulldozer nudge necessarily, or the fire nudge, but don't we sometimes just have these little synchronicities where, you know, we might, I know, we're science of mind, we don't get into these little mental funks ever. We don't ever need a little nudge out of it. But just, let's just say that happens somewhere along the line. And we get these little synchronicities that feel so good, and we say, it's a miracle. I just love miracles. Who doesn't love miracles? And who doesn't experience miracles from time to time? Because sometimes, in the manner in which we grow, a miracle just comes in handy once in a while. We never have miracles that result in negative effects on us, do we? Those aren't miracles, those are disasters. But here's the thing about miracles. Miracles do not go against natural laws. Miracles go beyond natural laws. And if we were to map quest our road trip back to God, wouldn't we have those as way stops along on the travel? We would have some miracles built in there. And we would know that we're not going against anything. We're not busting through barricades. We're transcending them. We're hopping over them. We're learning. We're growing. We're going into that divine reality that we were born from and remain within, although sometimes at birth, of course, not sometimes, almost every time, we put those blinders on, right? All right, got my blinders working. And then as we start to edge them out a little bit at a time, we've got more room for more growth. And kind of like that orange tree, that orange tree is rock solid planted into ground, and it's got the roots that go down there. The oranges don't grow off the roots. They don't grow off the leaves. They don't grow off the trunk. They grow off what? The branches. And like the master teacher Jesus said, that he was talking about vines, but there is no difference. Life is life. And everything that grows, all the fruits of God's creation, grow on a vine of some sort. Call it what you want. And if you cut that branch that the oranges are growing on, or you cut that vine that the grapes are growing on, it withers and dies. If it's not connected to its source, to its ground, to its creator, which is the tree, If it's not connected to that, it's going to wither and die. And that's what the Master Teacher Jesus told us. If we separate ourselves, if we cut ourselves off from our source, from our vine, from our creative birth and rebirth grounding, we're going to wither and die also. How sad it might be to get to the end of our lives and think, wow, I didn't grow at all. Here I am. I'm still playing with the little train around the track. You know, when I could be riding on, oh, look at the things we have. Look at how far we've come as a human race, technologically. But technologically isn't enough. We have to make the same strides in all of our methods of living: emotional living, psychological living, loving living. We have to make the same strides in all of them as we do in technology. Otherwise, we have all this advanced stuff, but we have no feeling to go with it. And I hear today, pretty often from people that, wow, especially with this pandemic thing going on where we're all kept inside, and people with kids at home, young kids, they're not out in the street playing baseball anymore, or football, or basketball. In fact, God knows, I think for the last 20 years, in certain areas, especially these cosmopolitan areas, these suburban areas, they haven't been doing that for the last 20 years anyway. They've been in what? They got that GameStop thing working. You can carry a telephone around the size of the iPhone. That it's a computer, right? And these kids are on it all the time. And in some ways, I think that really, well, it expands their thinking, their capability, their intellectual ability, and their mechanical ability. But I don't think it expands at all that soulful growth that we need to go along with all that in order for it to make any sense. In order for the benefits of technology to really be of value to us, we have to be in a place where we can use them to further ourselves and further the race, not just to while away the hours. Used to be we'd while away the hours, I don't know, reading books, talking to people, to friends and family. And now we just need to have the faith that with all this new technology, this is just a little speed bump. This is a little bulldozer bash. We'll come out of this on the other side, because we always come out of this on the other side. Humanity always comes out better century after century after century. And the way we can have faith that that will happen is when we allow ourselves to keep growing in this situation that we're in. The situation we're in is our humanness. And as long as we have faith in that, not faith just in us, as in me, faith in us as a group, faith in us as a race and a consciousness, then we will grow as we are directed to do. Viktor Frankl asked so many years ago, after being a therapist, a prisoner of war, not a prisoner of war, but a Holocaust victim, and he finally decided, he said, the question I need to ask is, what is mine to do? Don't we all say, kind of, sort of, why am I here? That's a kind of a general question. Why am I here? That's kind of difficult to answer. I think it's easier to answer his question, what is mine to do? Back to the Course in Miracles. Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? These are the important things. Let's get off the general Because that's like saying, oh, well, we just need to get better. Okay, we're probably not gonna find anybody to argue with us about that. But the question always then becomes what? How do we get better? How we get better is we invest in our faith and not so much in our fear of what's going on around us and is it going to somehow ultimately turn out to be okay? Because really, ultimately, doesn't everything turn out to be okay? Not in the particular instance maybe, but overall, universally for us. So let's don't have fear around that. And what's fear anyway? Except faith that something bad's going to happen. Why would we have that? Why would we bog down in that? Oh, I'm so worried about this, so worried about this. We set up our own boundaries, right? We limit ourselves. We set up our boundaries. And it doesn't make any sense, and there's to no avail to say to somebody, don't set up your boundaries, because they're already here. We've set them up. And if we didn't set them up, everybody we have known ever since we were that big has set them up for us. So the boundaries are already in place. Our job then is to transcend them, by accepting that invitation from life to grow. So we were not put here to be stagnant. Can we get that? And the only way to grow is how? Again, it doesn't help us to grow in what we know. Well, on a human plane, it's true. We do need to grow in what we know, but still knowledge is just that. Knowledge is only knowledge. Experience is growth. Because with all the knowledge in the world, that still doesn't guarantee growth. The only thing that guarantees growth is taking that knowledge that we have and putting it into our life experience. Okay, so you want to know God? To know God, we have to experience God. Not intellectualize about God. To know God, we've got to sit down with ourselves and say, hello, God, are you here? And then God, of course, is going to answer. Don't we think of our body, and rightfully so, our body is an integral unit, right? It's a whole unit. We wouldn't take a part of our body and set it aside on a shelf. Not even one lousy little cell. Because every cell, everything that's in our body is a required part of that body to make it whole. God is that indivisible entity, that indivisible wholeness, very much like that, analogous to the body. And the only way we can experience it is the same way we experience our body. We don't think about what we're going to do with our body. We don't need to think about what we're going to do in terms of our relationship to the divine. We just have to surrender to it and know that growth is only possible when we accept that it's not us responsible for the ability to grow. We don't put the creation into ourselves. We don't put the growth, the birth or the rebirth into ourselves. But we have to surrender to that process and know that because there is this divine, absolute, life-giving, life-sustaining force that works through us, that enables us to look out into the world and take what's here and embody it in order to grow in our place. A quick story, then I'm going to quit. So there was this science of mind practitioner. She's at the beach with her grandson. And her grandson's just playing in the water, right at the water's edge. this big giant wave. When the wave goes out to sea, the little boy's not there any longer. Well, she knows how to handle this. She says, I know there's one presence and one power. And she embodies this mental picture of her grandson still being there, whole, perfect, and complete, and healthy, and unharmed in any possible fashion. And she just says, I know this is the case, and I'm thankful that this is the case. Sound familiar? That's what we do. And then she says, thank you, God. Well, when she hears this kind of big booming voice come out of the sky saying, all right already. All right. Stop. Next thing, another wave comes over. There's a little boy. He's still standing there playing in the sand. And that big voice says, are you happy now? And the practitioner just looks out and says, you know, he was wearing a sun hat. The only point of that story is we should never stop demanding what is ours from that consciousness that is life, that is the absolute, that is God. We should not stop demanding until we have all of what's available to us. And all of what's available to us is all there is. All we have to do is get that mental equivalent of it and be willing to surrender to it and accept it. And when we do that, we have indeed accepted that invitation to grow, and we will grow beyond the limits we thought were possible. Let's just take that into prayer. Knowing that there is that one power and that one presence, that one creative intelligence from which all things come, and to which all things eventually return, because that absolute intelligence itself is unmoving, it's unchanging, it is what it is, and it is the ground of all things. All things that come from it are changing. That's their job, is to change. We come into being, we grow, we expand, accepting all the good that is ours to have. And when we have completed that purpose, we reunite with that creative intelligence, with that God, with Him, with her, with it. Knowing that this is the case, I just give thanks for this opportunity to grow, this opportunity to be here on this plane of existence, just reveling in the wondrous beauty that is life. I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and I'm grateful for knowing that what is mine to do is to discover exactly that, to discover what is mine to do and to do it, furthering my life, the life of those around me, and indeed the life of humanity. It's with grateful heart that I just say thank you, God, for this opportunity. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I release this word into that law, knowing that it already is. And together we say, so it is.
So grateful, I am one in the Spirit all around me. I'm thankful, so grateful, I trust in God.
Ah, yes, and this is that part of our service where our ushers come forward, and we're going to have the ushers come forward, even though the place isn't filled to capacity, even though it's just those of us who are essential workers for this service. So I invite you, the few of us that are here, and those of you who are at home, if you will, to take out your gift, your tithe, your offering, hold it right close to your heart, and say with me our prosperity affirmation. I live in a universe of abundance. As I freely and joyfully give, I join in the divine flow. All that I share with life returns to me multiplied abundantly. So it is. And to those of you at home, thank you so much for your continued support. It is from the heartfelt giving of you that we are able to keep this Center for Spiritual Living in Fullerton, functioning and doing its good work in the world. So thank you so much for your continued support. Those of you who mail in your gifts, your tithes, your offering, those of you who donate by way of the website. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
When the universe burst open and I found that I was safe and I couldn't turn away, all that I could ever be was shining right in front of me. All that I am was right there in my hand. Here I am in the heart of my being, state of grace. And all is well. In the eyes of someone loving is a feeling overwhelming and beginning into bliss, like the soul's holy kiss. And everything surrounding me, the beauty of eternity, and everything's made of never-ending love. Here I am in the heart of my being, in a state of grace, and all is well, yeah, all is well. Here I am in this magical moment, and all, yeah, all is well. Anytime I want, it will be, 'cause the magic is really me. It's all there is. Here I am in the heart of my being, in a state of grace, and all is well, yeah, all is well. Here I am in this magical moment, and all, yeah, all is well. Sing along with me. Here I am in the heart of my being, in a state of grace, and all is well, yeah, all is well. Here I am in this magical moment, and all, yeah, all is well. Oh yeah, all is well. Oh yeah, all is well. Oh yeah, all is well.
Wow, Jerry Wilder, Tommy Cosentino, bringing us those magical moments right here. Thank you so much. So, just a note that our practitioners are always available. We're always here. We're always steeped in and ready to pray with you for at the drop of a hat. So if there's anything that's preying on your mind, or anything you just want to talk about, you just have to tell somebody, call us, email, stop by. We'll be happy to sit with you and do that. Right now, let's just know together that something wonderful is happening through me right now.
Something wonderful is happening through me right now.
It's this thing called life.
It's this thing called life.
It's this opportunity to live and grow
It's this opportunity to live and grow
into my highest
into my highest
possible
possible
being.
being.
I know that.
I know that.
I believe it.
I believe it.
I do it.
I do it.
Thank you, God.